When it comes to envisioning a great life, Fionn and Jonathan are world-class Imagineers. When life gives them lemons, they teach themselves how to juggle and then make lemon meringue pie and share some with their neighbours. Now, I did get another little version of one of the original, brochures. Fionnathan Productions is not-for-profit social enterprise. Fionnathan exists to have fun and change the world, to trouble your understanding of ability, to reveal superstars and their myths, and to prove that, in fact, we are the people we've been waiting for. Through music, live presentations, videos, and visual arts, we seek to collaborate with diverse people who are passionate about what they do. I'm intrigued. And I can't say any more, so I'm just going to ask Fionn and Jonathan to come forward and make their presentation.
Hello. How are you?
Can't see us yet. Hello, my name is Jonathan Angus.
And I am Fionn.
And where do we live?
And we live here in Galway.
And our talk is really about transitions from school to whatever comes next. We're still kind of figuring out what comes next.
We are, yes.
When Fionn was a teenager, like most dads, I was envisioning what the future might be, but then realizing, well, it's Fionn's future, so I need to help him to decide or help him to find what his future would be. So I started asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And the answer that Fionn would give was very much dependent on what was happening around him at the time. So, for instance, you spent a lot of time as a teenager, and you do still, going through your collection of nature and wildlife books, and watching BBC documentaries and things like that. And when I would ask you, while you were doing that, what do you want to do when you grow up? What answer would you often give?
That I wanted to be the next David Attenborough.
And then if you happened to be practicing your violin at the time I asked, what would you say then?
That I wanted to be an accomplished fiddle player.
Yeah. And if you happen to be listening to pop music when I'd ask, then you might say?
I want to be a member of One Direction.
Yeah, and what I realized is I had to be creative in the way that I listened. The first, when you would say you wanted to be David Attenborough, I would think to myself initially, in my critical mind, well, that's not very likely. Like, there's going to be a long list of people who want to be the next David Attenborough, and they all have PhDs in biology, thank you, or something. And then I thought, well, what Fionn's really saying is that he loves nature, he wants to share his love of nature, he wants to learn more about filmmaking, right?
Yes.
And travel the world. And all those things are possible and have proven to be possible, right?
Yeah.
But we, I guess the start of our project, Fionnathan Productions, you could look at it as starting in from two different directions. And the one, oops, I just said it, the one direction that it came from was exploring this question of, who do you want to become and what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
And I think it's a question that we don't give enough time and attention to in general for typical young adults, that they're kind of pushed into making big life decisions without a lot of knowledge about what they're deciding. And I thought, well, this is one of the blessings of having a, quote, disability, is that there were very few expectations for Fionn after finishing secondary school. You could say that's a really bad thing, but it also can create opportunities. So it means that no one expected Fionn to do anything in particular, which kind of opened the world up, right?
Yes.
So, but we had come upon this question. In fact, you had decided that that was a good question to ask a group of people with Down syndrome all around County Clare.
Yes.
We made a documentary film, and I said, Fionn, could you come up with one question that we could ask everyone? Something simple so that people can be included no matter their communication style. And you came right on to a really good question.
Yes. The question is, what do you love about your life?
Yeah, and I'm a little slow on the uptake, so I thought, oh, that question might work. And it was like the next day or even the day after that I realized that's such a good question. And not only that, but for so many of us in the room who are really interested in helping people to achieve good lives, it's the most important question to start with, isn't it? Because some of us have made the mistake of saying, oh, I want you to have a good life. I know what a good life is, so I'm going to help you have or achieve something like my vision of a good life. And of course, that's folly, because everyone has their own idea of what a good life is. And to start with the question of what do you love about your life is a really important way to listen to the person and to let the person lead in the process of helping. So you found that on your
Yes.
own. And we did the interviews with people with Down syndrome around County Clare. We made a little documentary.
Yeah.
And we ended up going where with that?
We ended up going on RTE's Saturday Night Show with Brendan O'Connor.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you saw that. It seems like ancient history now.
Thank you.
But it was the start of something, because after a few days after we were on television, and that was so much fun, wasn't it?
Yes.
Then I thought, well, Fionn, this question, we finished that documentary, but this question, what do you love about your life? You could ask people who are successful in the fields that you're interested in this question.
Yes.
Because then you could really learn about what it's like to live a life as a professional musician or a filmmaker,
yeah,
or a visual artist, by asking, well, what do you love about your life? You've spent your life doing this kind of a career.
Yeah.
So that was about almost 6 years ago that we started that. How many of these additional interviews have you done now?
Over 500 interviews now.
Yeah. Let's do a bit of name dropping now, because some of them I think you will have heard of. So who are some of the people that you've interviewed? Maybe some of the actors that you've interviewed?
Well, there's Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, Donald Gleeson, Brendan Gleeson.
Yes. Gabriel Byrne.
How about American actors?
Marissa Tomei. and Angela Lansbury.
And who just last month, as part of the International Arts Festival here at NUIG?
I forget now.
Well, in the Star Trek series, she played Commander Janeway.
Oh, yes. Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah. Anyway, we could go on and on. Fionn's interviewed President Michael D. Higgins,
yes,
former President Mary Robinson.
Yeah.
We looked on Wikipedia, the 10 most famous film directors from Ireland, and Fionn has interviewed 7 out of the 10. So,
yeah.
So all this can be seen on a YouTube channel that we have called?
Yes. Called Fionnathan Presents What Do You Love?
Yeah, so the most important part of that is Fionnathan. If you spell that right, we're the only Fionnathan on the World Wide Web. But so over 500 interviews. We're going to be in 2 weeks at Temple University,
yes,
where we're doing 2 days of interviews with the university president and the head of multiple colleges there,
yeah,
and students who are currently in the various colleges. So it's an idea. I know many of you are academics associated with different wonderful institutes around the world, that you could invite us and we could do something like that. Temple University is also going to be doing a proper qualitative analysis, because we realize we have quite a rich database here that needs to be explored and written about. But we did kind of do a preliminary, and Fionn, will you read out what we found are the 7 most common answers to the question, what do you love about your life?
Sure. Family and friends, health and life itself, home, work, art and music, travel and nature and learning.
So we thought that we'd talk a little bit about our lives and our project in each of these 7 categories.
So I love my family and friends. I have a big family, actually.
With lots of siblings?
Well, I don't have siblings, but I do have cousins, and I love them very much.
Yeah, and you have friends all over the world.
Yes, I do.
We'll talk about some of our travel later.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this piece of artwork that you created.
Sure.
Many of you, in fact, I trust most of you in the room will be familiar with the concept of a circle of support. And this is, usually it's just a bunch of dots in a circle, but this is Fionn's version of it. But we love the idea, and we think it's really important for us to keep in mind, but we also problematize. We even problematize things we love, and this is one of them. We had a couple of significant challenges to this model.
Yeah.
So what would be one of the problems we found?
That there are not 2 species of people, one the disabled and the other the abled.
Yeah, there are not 2 species of people. And this sort of suggests that there's 2 types of people, the ones who are in the center of the circles and the rest of us who are around the circle, right? And that was expressed by you in these golden lines that are there.
Yes.
That relationships are never one way, and that we all benefit from being in relationship. And you can't really characterize the relationship as, I know we have to always challenge our terminology, but this idea of service users and service providers, and just take a moment to think of those 2 terms. And where do we find ourselves, you know? Well, we're not the users, right? No one wants to be a user. So that we have to get away from that before we can even really start to do the right things with people. So Fionn drew those lines that kind of show that relationships are 2-way.
Yeah.
And that one of the warmest feelings you can have, maybe you celebrate Christmas or some other gift-giving time, when you give a gift to someone. It's a wonderful feeling. It's also wonderful to receive a gift, but let's face it, as adults, for most of us, it's the giving of a gift, or it's the someone receiving a gift from you that feels really good, that gives your life meaning, right? To be a giver of gifts. So in this model, that person in the center is, by receiving support, by receiving help, is doing a great service to everyone else in their circle. And we can break it down to economic terms and say, if those people around the outside are being paid, they only have a job because of that person in the middle. They should say thank you every day to that person for providing them a job. That's a very important role to play in the world, to provide someone with a job. So that was one. What's another issue that we thought should be rethunk with this model?
That the tool is independence and the goal is interdependence.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, lofty talk about independence. That's the goal that we want for people. But that's baloney. Like, who wants to live on an island? That's what independence means. Living without others. Living without any need for others. That's a pretty barren life. So we believe that interdependence is what we want to aim toward. And of course, having the skills of independence is really important. So if you can imagine, take any one of those people on the circle and imagine that that person is the center of a circle of support. Because we all need circles of support. We wouldn't be in this room today if we didn't have a lot of people in the wings, right, supporting us currently and in the past, believing in us, helping us to get things done. So any one of those person has a circle around them. And you can see by those golden lines that, oh yeah, you can even see part of the circle that goes through a couple of the other people, and most of the other people in their circle are hidden. But when you consider the circle around any one of those people on the outside, you find that the middle person is on their circle. So it changes the role of the person in the center, not to just be someone who receives support, but someone who, in their way, gives support to every one of those other people out there. So that's our version 2.0 of circles of support. So the next category, Fionn, what would you like to say about health and life itself?
Well, I'm very healthy, but I also love life too.
And when you finish secondary school, this is the second version of the story of how Fionnathan Productions began.
Yes.
Because what was the expectation for someone like yourself finishing secondary school? What would you next do with your life?
So for people like me and other challengers, normally what the government would do is to put people in these day programs.
Right, and we looked into them, and there's some very good things about the ones that we explored.
Yeah.
You were living in County Clare at the time.
Yes.
And we had some really fruitful conversations with, like, for instance, the director of Brothers of Charity in Clare. But Fionn wanted to go further than they were able to do and wanted more choice and control than they were able to offer. And we had done our homework and we knew about self-directed supports. We also knew that they didn't exist virtually in Ireland at that time, 5 years ago, but that we offered to the HSE that we could become the first pilot project.
Yes.
And that they said, you'll have to, first they said no, and then they said no again, and then they said, well, you would have to set up a company if you wanted, so that we could consider you to be a service provider for one person. So we did that, and it took a year to negotiate, but then the money started flowing, a very small amount of money. And what did you do with your support money?
I created what an awesome life looks like.
And who did you hire to help you?
I hired my extremely handsome and such an awesome father.
Right.
That's who I hired.
Right. So with the 10 hours of paid work that Fionn provides me every week, I work about 60 hours or so on this project.
Yes.
And we had the good help of an amazing man who has unfortunately left us, but you will see his image in the painting that Fionn created. Does anyone know who that is? His name is Martin Naughton. And he started the Disability Federation of Ireland, and he was an amazing advocate for all of us. And also started Ashana Takiakta, which helps people with personal budgets who have physical disability. And he was willing to help Fionn to be the first with a primarily learning challenge to have his own budget. So those are some people who helped us along the way. Let's talk about home.
Okay. Well, I love home. I grew up in Mount Shannon, County Clare, and I now live here in Galway.
Yeah, so when you moved after school, we knew you would need support, financial support to make it happen. we went to the city council and they said, oh no, you can't just move. This is post-Celtic Tiger, and people aren't allowed to just move and get supports. You have to have a job offer. You have to have a note from your employer that says that you have work available to you if you move to Galway. And it just so happens we were able to provide that.
Yes.
Because not only does Fionnathan Productions employ me, but it employs Fionn as well. And one of the things that Fionn does is he plays his music on the streets in Galway.
Yes.
And so we were able to write a letter saying, this young man, if he moves to Galway, will have work available for him. And then they said, right, okay, you can get on the housing list. We had to get a doctor's note saying that you could one day live independently, but in the short term would need someone else to live with you. So they allowed you to rent an apartment with 2 bedrooms.
Yes.
I happen to occupy the other bedroom, but I'm just the paid employee who offers support. So as far as the rent support goes, it's all about you.
Right.
And yours is the only name on the lease.
Yes.
Right? We've been there for 4 years now.
Yep.
And this summer we just got our eviction notice.
Yes.
The landlady wants to move back in. So if anyone knows of an apartment, a really nice apartment in Galway, we're looking.
Yep.
So last year with the Galway 2020 funding, we partnered with our local family resource centre.
Yeah.
We live in Duishka, which is it's the best part of Galway, Galway being the best city in Ireland.
Yeah.
It has 48% people who have chosen to live in Ireland. That's amazing. More than any other neighbourhood or county or city in Ireland. 48% are immigrants. And from all over the world, right?
Yes.
The local college, the national secondary school, has collectively 35 languages. So it's a very diverse place. So we proposed through our Family Resource Centre to host what?
To host these culture cafes.
Yeah, so once a month we had 3 different groups of people who said that they would like to come and talk about their home culture.
Yeah.
Sometimes wearing costume, always bringing food, and there was music and other things, and it was a great experience. Selfishly, we were the MCs, and it was a great experience just for us to meet our neighbors and eat this wonderful food. But also, it was really good for our neighbors to meet our neighbors. Because if you were part of one group, you stayed for the other 2 groups, even though you wouldn't just have shown up just to hear about this other country necessarily. So it was really a good way to bring people outdoors and then together and meet each other. And it's having lasting effects, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's a nice kind of community building project. So I alluded to this already. What are the 3 goals of our company?
To help me have a great life, which is the first goal of the company.
Sure is, yeah.
The second goal of the company is to share our process so that others can learn from it and use what they learn to help them have a great life.
Yeah, it's like we're in the jungle, hacking our way through because there's no path yet. We're pioneers.
Yeah.
But when we make our path, there's the path that others can use. So we have to tell people, here's a path that you can use. So that's a big part of why we're so happy to be here today, is to share the story.
Yes.
And the third goal that our company has?
Is to change the world by removing obstacles, preventing people from having great lives.
And you may think that's the most difficult, but really it's not so difficult, because what is the biggest obstacle?
The biggest obstacle is society's way of thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't cost a lot of money to change this. It's not a big scheme or anything. We just have to wake ourselves up to the injustices that we have tolerated, that we have allowed, that we have approved in our society. The injustices that are all around us that just make the lives of people who are labeled with disability lousy in comparison to other people's lives, that we really have to stop turning a blind eye to that. And people get it. I mean, we were at Trinity College on Monday,
yes.
right? We give a guest lecture every year there, and we talk at 10 other Irish colleges and universities every year. And the students, I mean, they're social care students, but they do see that if you give a simple example like wheelchair users trying to get around on the train system in Dublin and compare that to most of the rest of us in our experience, where we don't have to let them know 24 hours in advance, we don't have to cancel our trip if the lift is out of order, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's clear that we need to change things, and we can change things, but the first one is just that we need to stand up for inclusion of everyone. Yeah. So is there another? There isn't. There's one other thing that's really important in what we did. I mentioned that you are employed
Yes.
by Fionnathan Productions. I didn't mention that we don't have a lot of money.
Right.
So although Fionn is a mad busker and makes good coin when he plays his violin, you'll hear, those of you who are coming to the dinner will hear him play tonight.
Yes.
You don't have to give him any coin, though.
Nope.
Because
It's
because we found a scheme. I love that word from America, where I come. The idea of scheme is like, oh, you're scheming about something. But it just means a government program that reimburses employers who hire someone with disability. Do you know about the wage subsidy scheme? It's apparently very little used in the country, but any private employer can hire someone who's labeled with a disability for at least 20 hours a week at least minimum wage, and they get reimbursed €5.30 per hour for the money they pay. So it's a no-brainer. It means 60 or 70% of the money that you pay to employ someone with disability comes back to you. For life. There's no limit on the amount of time. We are, though, the first company who said, well, we have someone we want to employ. We don't have a job that needs to be done. So we're not looking for you to pack bags or stock shelves or one of those typical jobs. Instead, we were able to say, let's find a person-centered job based on your skills and interests as you declare them, and your mother, right?
Yes.
We had to consider what she thought should be included in your job description. Yeah. And then we employed you.
Yes.
Right? And as I say, almost 2/3 of the money we didn't have to worry about. So initially it was about €50 a week that we were paying Fionn out of our company's pocket. So we really encourage individuals and families and support agencies. Although support agencies can't be the direct employers, they can help people set up their own businesses, or maybe cooperative businesses where people are able to create a job that they love and be paid a reasonable wage for it. So we'd be happy to talk to any of you about that later. So then going into art and music, I think we have some pictures of some of your artwork.
Yes, we do.
So what would you like to say about your art?
The thing that I want to say about my artwork is that I love the idea of monsters, and there's this like invisible monster out there in society that we don't see.
Right. So we draw parallels between the experience of people with disability and the sort of archetype of the monster. We could just say people treat people with disability as if they were monsters. Isn't that horrible? And sort of leave it at that. But actually, we kind of like monsters.
Yeah.
And we were thinking that monsters are pretty cool. They're pretty radical. And it is true that people are fearful of them until they get to know them and they realize we shouldn't marginalize these strange beings in our midst. They have something to teach us. I mean, so many of the stories about monsters are about that, are about like the great gifts that the monster has when you just get over its external appearance, you know, that sort of thing. So, so we love doing artwork around monsters.
Yes.
We also, you like mythology of all sorts, don't you?
Of course I do. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fionn's first art exhibition was called Collaborations,
Yes.
where we worked with 10 different artists. I could see that Fionn has a beautiful artistic vision,
Yeah, thank you.
but also that you were, because you didn't have a training or kind of go through the path that artists typically do to be recognized,
Yeah.
it might not work, that we'd need to kind of hack the system. So I found 10 artists and said to each of them, would you like to collaborate with Fionn? And they all said yes. And one of them, in describing what you have, said, when I try to paint, before the brush can touch the canvas, I have to go through layer upon layer of self-doubt and like hearing other people's criticism and all of this kind of thing before I can actually touch the canvas, whereas Fionn just seems to be able to go straight there and to create. And I love that about him. So I used to use
Thanks.
words, I used to use words like simple or primitive, but those have
Or
such
childlike, right?
childlike. They have negative connotations. It's none of that. What's the word that we've discovered that kind of expresses it?
Pure.
Yeah, it's pure.
Yeah.
And many of the artists that we collaborated with, like this stained glass artist, they got it right away, what we were looking for. One of them who didn't, was actually a painter and gave Fionn a canvas and the brush and the palette of colors and said, okay, paint, good luck. I'm here to, I don't know, quietly support you in some way. And he brought home a canvas that looked like it was someone's first attempt at painting, because it was. And I said to her, that's not really what we're looking for when we collaborate. We asked you to collaborate because you have years and years of technique, and you know how to make a painting. And we want the collaborative painting, the collaborative piece that you two create, to be something that you would be proud of putting on the wall, but we want it to be led by Fionn. We want Fionn's vision to be the thing that really comes through. We want it to look like Fionn's work, but done really well. And so this is an example of the stained glass that
Yes.
she didn't actually do this piece with Fionn. She did it in England,
Yeah.
but she took Fionn's drawing and she created a piece. So that's the kind of collaborations we've been able to do. And we're really looking for those kind of collaborations, not only in art, but in all fields of what we do. So we're thrilled to be invited to give talks at so many conferences like this.
Yes.
What are some of the other conferences that we have given talks at this year? What places have we been to?
Well, we've been to different universities and colleges in the States.
Yeah, we have, such as Wayne State
Yes.
University. Also, we've been to Hawaii. We
Yes.
gave a conference talk there.
Yeah.
About 10 states, actually, where
Yeah.
we've given talks and universities or at conferences. And what other countries this year?
Well, Denmark.
Denmark, Scotland.
Scotland. Yeah.
And well, Hawaii's not another country.
No.
Yeah, we've given loads, and
Yeah.
we don't have PhDs, so it's really exciting that we're able to be in this world. It's a sense of the same thing, kind of collaborating with people who know much more than we do, but what we bring is something, I think, also important.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we do a lot of
Lovely, yeah.
coffee stain creatures.
Yeah.
I get to make the coffee stains, and then Fionn finds the wonderful images within them.
He gets the awesome job of spilling coffee, actually.
Yes, I do. I love to spill coffee. It's another metaphor, though. As a parent of someone who's labeled with a disability, it's a bit, and getting that diagnosis is, which by the way was 3 months after Fionn was born, in my case, it can be a bit like if you are an artist and you sit down with a fresh piece of paper and you're ready to start a project and you spill your coffee on it and you say, it's ruined, right? And then you take another moment or a long moment and you look at it, a few moments, and you say, wait a minute, there's something wonderful there. We can work with this. This is very different than we expected, but this is really great. And I think that's a nice metaphor for being a parent of someone with additional challenges.
Thanks.
So what's this here, Fionn?
It's a snow monster.
Of course.
Yeah.
And this one?
A clockator.
A clockator.
He tells the time.
In a scary way.
Yes.
And who's this?
That's Cornelius, the wheelchair using guitar playing cat.
Yeah, he's kind of our mascot.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I think this might be the last category, travel and nature. Before Fionn left secondary school, I thought, well, we need to get on this David Attenborough thing,
yeah.
Right? So we took a week on board the Celtic Mist, a yacht formerly owned by Charles Haughey, but his family gave the boat to the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group, and they use it to do surveys.
Yeah.
And the one that we went on was what?
Was the Bottlenose Dolphin Survey.
For 1 week we were aboard this boat. We traveled from where to where?
From Donegal down to Galway.
Yeah, so we're mostly social researchers, but we're citizen researchers.
Yeah.
But we also help with kind of raw quantitative data, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Then we took a trip to Tanzania.
Yes.
And we were there for a month,
Yep.
visiting friends and
Yep.
exploring wildlife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything you want to say about any of those? Did you eat that grasshopper?
No.
No. But did you eat any grasshoppers?
In peri-peri sauce.
We made a little video where Fionn was acting like Bear Grylls, and he was saying, out in the jungle, you have to be able to get your protein wherever you can. I get mine with peri-peri sauce.
Yes. Yes.
So then we went to the Amazon River, as you do. We spent 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
We went deep into the rainforest.
Yes.
How long was our boat trip?
30 hours?
30 hours, yeah. And we stayed in a village that was so remote. There were 50 people living in grass-roofed huts.
Yeah.
And you did what when you were there?
I played my violin there.
And the people of the village told us that the children had never heard a violin played. So it was a really special thing, a gift that you gave.
Yes.
That picture of dinner,
Yeah.
just below the toucan there,
Yes.
what kind of fish is that?
They would be piranha.
Yes, and now, did you eat that piranha?
No.
No, you didn't. You did eat that piranha,
But I did eat that one.
but you didn't eat the piranha that you caught on a fishing line.
Right.
What did you do with that piranha?
We were trying to coax a 5-meter long black caiman crocodile onto land to see its full length. But the crocodile was too shy, so our guide fed the piranha that I caught to the caiman.
Yeah. We spent a week there with our guide whose name is...
Nay.
His name is Ney. He speaks Portuguese very well. He speaks English not at all. We speak English pretty well, and we don't speak any Portuguese.
Right.
So it was only in the evenings when we would get back home that we would have a translator who would explain everything that had happened during the day. But he would take us out on canoes every day because we were there when the river was flooded, and so it's I don't know, probably hundreds of miles of water when the treetops are above, and
Yeah.
10 meters
Yeah.
down is the land, the level of the ground
Yes.
during the dry season.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So an amazing way to explore
Yeah.
the Amazon region.
Yes.
For your 21st birthday, 2
Yes.
years ago,
Yeah.
you said you wanted to be in the redwood forest,
Yes.
the largest living things on the planet.
Yep.
And so we started the trip at the very northern tip of the west coast of the United States,
Yep.
which is like Bellingham, Washington.
To
And then we made our way down to where?
San Diego.
Yeah, so all the way down the United Statesian part of the west coast. And
Yeah.
we had friends in Hollywood that we visited.
Yes.
John works in the film industry.
He does.
So we got to go to Nickelodeon and watch some
Yeah.
TV shows being shot, and just had an amazing time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I should say, as regards to our project, we visited a number of supported art studios,
Yeah.
right, like in Santa
Yeah.
Cruz, and we gave a number of talks similar to this one to community groups. We didn't think of the diaspora as another kind of potential audience, so we were at a couple of different sort of Irish immigration organizations,
Yeah.
right, on that trip. And
Yes.
then last year we did a trip around the world.
Yes.
What were the countries we visited on a short 6-week trip?
To Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. We also went to Australia and Malaysia, then Beijing in China, and lastly Canada.
Yeah, so loads of stories, of course, that we won't get into, but we had a wonderful time and did quite a few learning exchanges
Yes.
with amazing progressive
Yes.
family support groups in
Yeah.
Australia,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
lots of other great stuff. The Families
Yeah.
Conference in Alberta,
Yes.
Canada, which some of you may know the work of Bruce Uditsky, who's done amazing things. It's called Inclusion Alberta. They have 30 universities that have complete inclusion programs there that are really a model for what we should all be doing to provide opportunities for people with intellectual challenges to go to college in an integrated way. Then, speaking of learning,
Yes.
so we've done a lot of learning exchanges.
Yeah.
There's that from that TV appearance, Brendan
Yes.
O'Connor. Who's the fella in the middle? Maybe some of you recognize him.
Yeah, Timothy Shriver.
Right, you can see that Kennedy family, good looks. there.
Yes.
Elaine, what's Elaine's surname?
Miller.
Elaine Miller, who lives in Edinburgh, got us started. We did a comedy routine here at the what's it called? The Black Gate?
Gates, yeah.
And she was there doing some comedy as well. And she said, you guys should come to Edinburgh to the Fringe Festival. And so about 10 months later, that's where we were, just last
Yes.
month. You'll hear a little bit of our comedy routine this evening.
Yes.
Does anyone recognize that fella with the mustache there? Yeah, that would be our minister for...
Minister Filion McGrath.
Yeah, and I can't... What is her name with you there?
I forget.
So, part of a self-advocates group in
Yeah.
County Clare, yeah?
Yes.
And then, well, we've done lots of sort of cultural exchanges around the world.
Yeah.
So one of those pictures is from Malaysia.
Yes.
With a lovely family we played music with.
Yeah.
Another from Dar es Salaam.
Yes.
And you did that painting with, his name is Malindi.
Yes.
And then here in Galway, I don't know how many of you are aware of it's called Inflow.
Yeah, Inflow.
An entire
Yes.
gamelan orchestra, so instruments from Indonesia, and Fionn was part of that group for a year. And there's also a photo from our very first art exhibition,
Yeah.
right, with
Yes.
Andrew, who helped us to launch that.
Yeah.
And then lastly, in terms of learnings, well, a talk that Fionn gave in this building with the Inclusive Research Network, and members of the Inclusive Research Network will be presenting tomorrow. There's one of our talks to secondary school students.
Yeah.
So we talk about inclusion, and we talk also about social enterprise and the idea of, you can change the world. So young people are so passionate about the injustices of the world, but oftentimes all they hear from adults is, well, we can't fix it, you won't be able to either. And we really need to give a different message, right? That if the young people will fix it. That's the message that we give. And we share some of the techniques we've learned along the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And Fionn was a speaker at the Startability event, which is about people with disability having their own businesses.
Yeah.
We created a book with the Center for Disability Law and Policy, which is right here in this building, and LEAP, a family support organization, called Good Lives, and it's about 10 different families just telling their stories. And we could send a PDF of that if you're interested in seeing it. And what's the big news from last month in Scotland?
That Simon Duffy's Citizen Network, he wants us to be MCs, so we're going to be the Citizen Network's MC.
And what is it called? International
ambassadors.
Yeah, so we are the first international ambassadors
Yes.
of the Citizen Network. And you may not have heard of them yet, but they're doing wonderful work. In fact, some of you may be members already, but Simon Duffy brought personal budgets or self-directed supports to the UK many a year ago, and they're doing amazing work, and so are we. They recognize that. So lastly, if you want to stay abreast of what we're up to, well, Fionnathan is how you follow us, and we're quite active on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all those many interviews.
Yes.
Soon to reach 600 interviews.
Yes.
And we'll be publishing soon about that. So thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.